Sue did the PowerPoint presentation for me. I'm quite computer illiterate, and she's really made this kind of come to life. It'll be about 45 minutes long, I think. Kind of like a slideshow of different stamps. I have a handout. If you came in later and didn't get a handout, I can give you one. So, is there anybody else who would? Stamps. They've been with us really for a long time. Stamps have a variety of functions other than just postage stamps. These are some of the things that stamps have been used for collecting taxes, for example. There are stamps for beer, stamps for wine, whiskey. Bottles would have a stamp on it, a federal excise stamp. We call that a stamp. There's stamps for narcotics, stamps for marijuana, stamps for boating, for duck hunting. If you're a duck hunter, you have to have that stamp on your license, and then you have to sign your name across it. Stamps are on cigarettes, they're on firearms transfers, they're on matches, they're on even the sale of potatoes. Required stamps, silver, stocks, trailers. All of you probably drove here and you have a stamp on your car. It's a city sticker that you have to purchase. That would be a stamp too. So they're used to pay taxes. They're used to raise funds. Do you remember the old breast cancer stamp from a while back? That was called a semi-postal. 37-cent stamp, 13-cent surcharge that went for breast cancer research. So they provide a lot of different purposes. During the Civil War, the bad money, that is greenbacks and Confederate money, drove out all the good money, gold and silver, so there was a shortage of coins, and stamps were enclosed in mica, and they were used to make change because of the war. People buried their gold and silver, and the money really wasn't worth very much as well. So they also helped to pay for the Civil War. They're used in the consular service. If you want a special stamp for your family, the post office will provide one for you for a fee, and you can be on a stamp yourself that will be personalized, I think, for you as well. Postmarks, very important, used to, in some cases, to settle lawsuits and law cases. So it's really a wonderful way to teach American history, and we'll get started, I think, really right from the beginning. I'll save some time for some questions, but if you have a thought and you want to introduce it, if you want to do a correction, I'm fine with that. Sometimes I do miss things, so jump right in, when you have that. Let's look at the first slide here. I don't know if you can see that. These were private carrier stamps. And in this one we see the figure of Mercury, the god of speed, and the god, actually the messenger god for Boyd's dispatch service. So probably in New York City, even before 1847, if you wanted to get a message across town, there was no telephone, no email, no texting, no twittering, obviously, that you had to get that message to Wall Street really quick. You would get a kid probably on a bicycle, and Boyd's Dispatch would provide that service for you. It depended on the distance, not the weight so much, and I'll kind of go into that as well. So this is an 1844, we'll call that a private carrier kind of a stamp as well. But even before the private carriers, there were messenger services as well. Provisional postmasters would write the sum of money to be collected by their recipient. That way it would guarantee that the letter would get there. So, you know, write a letter to your aunt across the country, whatever, then they don't get paid until the letter gets into your aunt's hand as well. The canceling of the stamps prevented them from being used again. Sometimes they use burnt cork in order to do that. Why? Because it's hard to alter that. They would try to scrub stamps, get the postmark off, use it again, and that would tend to smear as well. Let's look at the Pony Express. Everybody knows about the good old Pony Express that began in 1860, and 8 days delivering a message all the way to California. It would go St. Joe to San Francisco, 2,100 miles in 12 days versus 28 days by the by the boat as well. One of the covers that I had seen has a Pony Express stamp on it, and it said mail delayed, captured by Indians.
Oh.
So the Indians had killed the Pony Express rider, and I wonder what the chief thought, because he knew this was valuable stuff that a person would risk his life for. And the cavalry found this bag of mail in the chief's teepee, and so it was a little bit late arriving that year. So you see Pony Express in a lot of different variations, I think, as well. It was instrumental in the Civil War. When Abraham Lincoln won the election in 1860, in 8 days, California had the news. Lincoln was elected. A high-ranking officer in the Federal Army then decided that he wouldn't support Lincoln, so he created a kind of a mini revolution, and he wanted to get an early succession starting in California. The news got back to Lincoln again in 8 days. The news came back to California. Really pretty quick time for this as well. 2,100 miles by horseback, the Pony Express. Okay, the next. Again, this is what we'll call a private carrier for this as well. This is in 1863. Again, New York City. These would be private carriers, probably used for Wall Street. Nothing to do with the Postal Service at all. Private carriers. Oxford and Cambridge would communicate with each other with special stamps by private carriers, I think, as well. Okay. These are our first stamps. They're copies. I don't have the originals. They're way too expensive for me. But in 1847, the United States finally got in the stamp business. Earlier than that, about 10 years before, Sir Rowland Hill had sponsored the idea of a penny black stamp in England. These were imperforate, meaning there was none of the little bumps on them, and the postmaster would just use the scissors and cut off the stamp, affix it to the letter with glue, and off it would go. The 10-cent stamp was used for over 100 miles. The 5-cent stamp would be under 100 miles, so it was by weight. This really energized letter writing and communication. It made this a lot cheaper. These were a lot cheaper than the private messenger. It lowered the price and increased the volume of this as well. Okay. Half cent. That was a while ago. And how do you give change?
They had half cents.
For a half cent.
Sure.
There were half cents, and they ceased production, I think, in 1856. So there probably weren't too many around at this point. This is from 1938. It's a presidential issue, even though Ben Franklin was not a president. He was the founder, of course, of the post office. So this would go 1/2 cent all the way up to $5 for this as well. To answer the question, usually the change would be given with another stamp. You'll see a postage due stamp. Imagine getting a letter from your friend and it says you owe money. You're not going to get the letter unless you pay a half a cent. And it's crazy stuff compared to today, I think, as well. Okay, the next one then too. This is a 1925 regular issue of Nathan Hale. All the early stamps really depicted what you call American patriots: George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Nathan Hale. These were really such an important part of American history. And so when you go from the half cent all the way up to the $5 stamp, which is quite valuable, you get a real lesson in American history. I want to thank Sandy for bringing her stamp. Sandy, you use these in your classroom?
Yes, I did.
Wow. And so the kids brought the stamps in?
No, I did them. I was cleaning out my aunt's house, and she saved a lot of old envelopes, and I was taking them off for envelopes.
Yeah. I hope we'll get a chance to look at those later. A wonderful way to teach economics, teaching arithmetic, teaching history. Who is this person on the stamp? Do you know anything about it? I think as well. Be part of this too. Okay, next. The postage due stamp started in 1879. This was a way to prevent embezzlement. So sometimes the postmasters, who were political appointees, were quite dishonest, and they tried to embezzle the fees that were collected by the postal clerks. And so this was, I guess, a kind of an accounting measure to keep track of the amount of money, and you would have to match the number of stamps that would be left to keep these postmasters honest. It started in 1879. This is a 1930 exhibit of a postage due as well. Can you imagine a mail carrier going around knocking on the door today, asking people to get that? Hardly anybody's home. If you call people, it's voice message and voicemail, things like this. Okay. A lot of these stamps you have to look closely. Of course, you notice Bunker Hill, and then that is the flag of Massachusetts behind it. And I put it in the show again because it's a 2.5 cent stamp. It's a kind of an odd denomination. Next slide. This is a 1925 stamp by Harding, and I have 3 of these in a row. This is Harding in profile, and the next one. This is after Harding passed away, and so this is a 1923 memorial tribute to Warren Harding, who had died in San Francisco. So you see how stamps would be used to commemorate people. That shortly after John F. Kennedy passed away, after he was assassinated, he was assassinated, I think in 1963. There was a 50-cent coin, 1964. And the stamps followed right away. So who is important? You look to the stamps, who's important, who's not important, they wouldn't be included on this. So we have a whole interesting thing about who's not on the stamps, including women for a long time. And Seneca Hills, the suffragette movement with Susan B. Anthony. It took a long time before a woman would be depicted on the stamp. Trivial Pursuit question, the first woman depicted on an American stamp was Queen Isabella, and that was on the Columbian exhibition, Chicago, 1893. So she doesn't exactly count.
Has every American president been on the stamp?
Yes, every American president, even the bad ones. Everybody gets a
Yeah, I
stamp.
mean, everybody got
What do you mean, they're all bad?
Yeah, they're all bad. Oh.
Why do you think they got elected?
There were a lot of stamps that followed as far as the nationalities and ethnicity. This is General von Steuben, a German, I guess?
Yes.
Von Steuben, and who aided in the American Revolution. When I taught high school, we had a day off school called Pulaski Day. And I would tell my friends from, all around, well, today's Pulaski Day. No school. And they go, who is Pulaski? Casimir Pulaski, the famous Polish, member of the Revolutionary Army that helped. And so we get a lot of different ethnic groups, Hispanic groups later on, African Americans. It's really part of our stamp history as well. So with von Steuben, and we have a 1930 portrait, and really important, I think, as well. Let's go to the next one. Any questions so far? Is everybody here?
That was a New York general.
Oh, okay, thank you.
County named after him over here.
Von Steuben was a New York general?
Well, he fought in the New York
He
area.
fought in New York?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a Pulaski too. It's pronounced
City.
Pulaski.
Pulaski?
But in the Midwest, it's pronounced Pulaski.
I didn't know that. So it's really all over the American Revolution, kind of saying thank you as well. Now there's other stamps. This is actually 1925 from a stamped envelope. So if you wanted to save yourself some trouble, why buy the envelope? You could buy the envelope with the stamp. So this is a 1925 envelope that really helped with convenience. Next slide. This one, we see a lot of interesting things going on. The 1893 Columbian Exposition celebrated, how many years would that be?
1893 back?
Yeah, going back to Columbus. Is that 400?
1492.
1400?
Yeah, you should mention, it should have been in 1890, or in 1892.
403 years.
But when Chicago had the big exposition, they couldn't get it done in time.
Yeah.
And so they had the exposition in 1893.
So in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. If you're ever in a college and you need to use a copy machine, and you don't know the code, just punch in 1492. The history teachers where I taught at the community college were notorious for forgetting their code. So they had to, they figured they can't forget 1492. So if they make 40 or 50 copies of something, you can do it on Professor Jones's account and instead of dropping money into those things as well. Let's see if I can get this thing going. What do we see in the stamp here? This is Columbus in sight of land. He didn't really, he took credit for sighting the land, but it was a sailor who was aboard the Pinto. I'll keep wanting to say Pinto as well. We have an allegorical figure of a woman. I don't think she's a Native American. Is she looking that way? Who? Over here.
What's her name?
A woman with, there's no name. It would be allegorical or kind of representing all women. A version of America that would be.
Well, there was an Indian chief in Florida, a woman Indian chief in Florida.
Was there really?
Yeah, they stole her and ran off, and she finally escaped and got back again.
Okay.
I forgot.
Florida
Probably
as well.
Columbia. Wouldn't it be like a representative of Columbia? Queen of the Ocean,
I think that's probably at Columbia, Queen of the Ocean, and a symbol of America. What is America like? America protects its young. America is bountiful and fruitful. America is pure, like an innocent maiden. So this shows up with the stamps as well. And then we have this wonderful portrait of the Native American in full headdress and regalia. And this is Columbus, I think, with about 3 figures around him. And he wrote in his diary when he had to visit Queen Isabella, the people are ingenious and would make good servants. That was the story of Columbus. So, today there's all this kind of revisionist thing that look back on Columbus and see that he's not as great as he was. This is, the 1 and 2 cent stamps are very common. When you get to the $4 and $5 stamps, those go into many, many thousands of dollars because it had to go through the Depression and, we want to keep money like that around.
Did they use the same pictures for the $4 and $5 stamps?
Yeah, it's the same vignette. It would be different portraits of Columbus's story. One of them is Isabella selling her or giving up her jewels, or Columbus presenting the natives. He kidnapped some of the natives and brought them back. And the Europeans were really fascinated by this, I think, as well. Let's go to the next one. This is one of the most powerful pieces of propaganda, good propaganda. But it's, propaganda by definition appeals to our emotions. So shortly after World War II was over, we commemorate these, I'm thinking about Chelsea Clinton for some reason, because the headline today said, Interfaith in Action, because Chelsea Clinton married a Jewish gentleman and they made it together okay. That was fine. So here we have 4 chaplains, 2 Protestant, 1 Catholic, and 1 Jewish, who were aboard the USS Dorchester in 1943. They were hit by a torpedo, and we can see the ship, of course, going down here as well. Anyway, they gave up their life jackets, so the others could live, and they were last seen on the deck of the Dorchester together praying. If that doesn't bring a tear to your eye, what does? And so I think stamps are always going to be around. They're wonderful ways of commemorating events. The 4 chaplains were given a Congressional Medal of Honor after that event, and became really important, I think, for, again, what we honor and what we value as Americans that day.
Is there any relationship between those chaplains and the ship that's going down?
Yeah, they were all on board the ship,
Well, what
and they were
was the
serving
name
as
of the-
chaplains.
What was the name of the ship?
The USS Dorchester, so it was sunk in 1943, big story, troop ship, but a lot of them survived, and at least 4 survived because of this heroism.
You were pushing coffee in the Washington, Charlie.
Pardon?
You were pushing coffee in Washington State.
Okay, next.
Please continue to talk.
We'll ignore that's fun. 1955, an event that really close to home here with Ontario being nearby and Erie. Here we have 2 lake steamers and the opening of the Sioux Locks, which opened up the country to Great Lakes navigation. There are all kinds of these stamps. There are just hundreds of them commemorating different kinds of events. Okay, next. Here is a 1-cent stamp. We can see the date over here, 1775 to 1925. So that would be what's 150 years? Sesquicentennial? I don't know. I always mix them up. But Washington, again, a piece of nice kind of propaganda, I think, as well. A lot of Washington and Cambridge, and the anniversaries of battles. We don't honor those anniversaries so much anymore. We have kind of forgotten that part of our history, but that keeps the memory of these things alive as well. Okay, next one. Whistler's Mother, 1934, honoring the mothers of America. Again, we don't have any real female characters yet on the American stamps. They're not real people, but these would be, again, I would call them kind of symbols of American virtue, honor, womanhood, things like that.
No value on it?
These are all probably worth 3 cents. It's terrible, but people often mail them, so.
3 cents. 3 cents.
Yeah. It's a 3-cent stamp, but I see what there will be in terms of the numbers as well.
And it was issued around Mother's Day, right?
It would be issued around Mother's Day, right?
Which
But-
is also when the post office always raises the rates.
Really?
It is, it's always around Mother's Day.
Yeah, we're going up again.
No, you're gonna put out.
Fasten your seatbelts, 44 to 46 cents.
Did you say this stamp was released on a Mother's Day?
Yeah,
Of what year?
this stamp was released in 1934. So again, it's kind of an early version of that. Do you remember the end of Saving Private Ryan? You saw that? That powerful piece of ending? I think that ending where you see Tom Hanks, I think is an older man, and then this is directly taken, I think, from the idea of this particular stamp. That was very controversial. What does UCB think you mean? Yeah, it would be up there, I don't know if you can read it or not, United Confederate Veterans. People are, no wonder why, they were traitors. They caused all these deaths. And they would have these reunions or encampments, and this one was, I'm not sure where I have it, it was in Norfolk, Virginia, and they would bring their camping gear and put on their old uniforms and tell stories. So this is the, I wondered if, is that a clock there with the sand, I think? Yeah.
What's that UCV?
United Confederate Veterans. So they stayed together, they had meetings, they had reunions, and I think it's also on the cap. The more you look at these, the more you discover. You know, it's just easy when you look at stamps to kind of go past it. Okay, the next one. Well, the Union isn't going to be outdone. So here we see the GAR. Anybody know what GAR?
Grand Army of the Republic.
Thank you. Go to the head of the class, Charlie. You get a gold star. GAR, Grand Army of the Republic. Same portrait, same hourglass. It's the same side to this as well. Okay, the next one. Now this again is a 3-cent stamp. Most of these are still worth 3 cents. This one has some value. It's probably worth more like 35 cents because it has baseball. And a lot of collectors are topical collectors. They want they collect really all sorts of things. And so this is 1939, and it's the 100th. I don't know how they figured this out. It's the 100th anniversary of Sandlot baseball. So again, if you look closely, 1839 to 1939, and if you had a baseball card collection, you could have baseball stamps. This would be a wonderful kind of commemoration of this as well. Okay, the next one. Lots of different exhibitions. I have more written. I'm not going to go into all of these things. But in 1933, 1833, Chicago, the city of Chicago was incorporated, and so in 1933 we have the Century of Progress. So Chicago got a pretty good deal. We got the Columbian Exposition in 1893, and then the Century of Progress, and we have the Fort Dearborn as well on Michigan Avenue at the bridge. They still have these little markers indicating where the massacre, at Fort Dearborn had been.
I went to that Century of Progress here in Chicago.
Oh, can you tell? Was it fun?
Yes. The only thing I can remember is that we were tubing Ipana toothpaste. You know, you ever remember that or not?
He's saying they were tubing Ipana toothpaste.
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing that got me, because I was in the country where there were horses, they had hair balls that they had taken out of the horse's stomach.
Yeah.
I remember those.
Nothing like a hairball. Set your heart racing. There were all kinds of trying.
Let me add something that Sue may not even know, but in 1933, my father was courting the woman who would become my mother, and he took her to the exposition in 1933 in Chicago, and they got married in 1934.
That must have been love, because he was pretty tight with his money. He really was.
Well, that's the World Fair.
accounting for love.
It was 1933 World's Fair. commemorating?
I think we drove out in 2 days, and we stayed overnight in Cleveland.
Okay.
That was only the first time so far that I slept in an undertaking problem.
Come again, Charlie?
Pardon?
What did you say again?
I said that we stopped in an undertaking parlor and stayed there overnight.
Did you sleep in a coffin?
No, no. No, we didn't go first class.
How come, Charlie?
Were you in the Navy then?
What?
Were you in the Navy then?
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
hadn't graduated from high school. Don Casey, Jode,
Yeah?
and myself, and Jode's father with his brand new Plymouth sedan, and a fellow by the name of Pete Wright, who was sort of my sponsor because my father didn't go.
Well, you'll have to come to the next meeting where they're gonna do bats. And talk about United.
All right, go
Undertaking
ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt your talk.
No, that's a good story, thank you, but just jump right in. Thank you. A tercentenary, I bet when Sandy, was teaching, you teach what, did the kids know a tercentenary, or say, well,
No.
1620 to
We
1920?
didn't get into that.
You didn't get that far then too? So it would be 300 years. So in 1620, the landing of the Pilgrims at Plymouth, Massachusetts. Again, a reverence for the past and especially celebrating anniversaries. Okay. Really an odd denomination, 1 1/4 cents. And so this would be part of the Liberty series. It's 1954. If you've ever been to Santa Fe, you'll see this Palace of the Governors. And so you could put together some interesting kind of denominations of stamps then to pay various rates, first class, second class, third class, fourth class. It's really pretty complicated, I think, as well. Parcel Post, 1913. This is a depiction of a South Chicago steel plant. And so in 1913, this would pay the fourth class mail. And these are hard to find because usually they're on that brown paper wrapper and it got crinkled up, and they're really hard to find in good condition because they were shipped on trains and in trucks and so forth, and they got really torn up pretty much then as well. But this again would be like a special usage kind of a thing. I love things like this, the old stuff, the old trains. It's just kind of neat as well. Okay, next. Anybody know what this is?
Oh, sure, I was just asking about the previous staff.
Okay.
Was the reason for it being red any particular reason, or just because they only had a limited number of colors?
They were trying to thwart counterfeiters or people who would, so sometimes they thought, I don't know if it's true, they thought red was harder to counterfeit than black and white. Sometimes they would incorporate a design with black and red just to, because they were always trying to stay ahead of things. And people did try to erase postmarks. Can you imagine, like 2-cent stamps, spend about half an hour trying to erase the postmark, use it again, different things. So they began to use a woven paper. So if you tried to erase it, it would tear the paper, and so there'd be various drills that would be used. So the post office is always kind of staying ahead of fraud, really as much as they can. And they still get fraudulent things as well. Cigarette stamps. I had read about an Al-Qaeda cell that was in Detroit that was busted, and actually by a philatelist, a stamp collector, who was looking at cigarette tax stamps. He noticed one that was phony, and they found that these Al-Qaeda people were using cigarette tax stamps then as part of their fundraising. They really knew American values well. The other item they were selling was fake Viagra. So they had cigarettes and Viagra. They said, you kill the enemy with his own weaknesses, or whatever they do. This is really odd. It's Boy, can you imagine sending your kid a 4-cent? This was a supplement to the regular money order use that would be under $1. So it was a postal note. It's kind of like the post offices would be like banks or little mini banks, ways of saving money. Next one we'll see the figure of the minute man. I guess you'd say minute person. Minute man on a 25-cent U.S. postal. Maybe some of you remember this. I don't know. You know, but they were in booklets. I have some of those. So that to support the war effort, people would purchase these below par value, maybe 17 cents, and then when it came due, you'd have a whole booklet filled with these, and then you'd collect it for the full 25-cent value. So it's like a double E savings bond. You buy it below par, and then it, you know, increases in value as well. Those are neat to collect too. And another anniversary, George Rogers Clark, 150th anniversary of the surrender of Fort Sackville in Indiana. And I just like it. It's beautiful. 29-cent stamp as well. Okay, next one. Big problem for the post office, kind of like the internet is today, is we have telegrams beginning to why write a letter? You can telegram and use the telegraph. And so the government, the United States government, begins to require these stamps to be sold to the general public for use on telegrams, and it would be the companies, the large companies then too, were to use these on their stamps, on their telegrams as well. So they weren't about to lose their piece of the pie as well. This is the American Telegraph Company. What company do you think? AT&T. So this is an early version of AT&T, and it was canceled with what we call perforation cancel. You can't mess with that. They just poke a hole in it as well. Next one. These are the series of 1898. We call them the battleships, and they were used to be used on all documents, even on checks. So a good way to collect money from the public then was to require these stamps, and these would be called documentary stamps. And they were a way of really, the government learned how to do that in order to raise money for the Civil War. These are documentary stamps as well. The next one, we'll see a playing card stamp. This is from 1894. So again, it would be a way to raise money. This would be a proprietary stamp. So it would be sold on items that would be considered by some to be sinful or a waste of time. Mainly this would be alcohol, playing cards, cigarettes, or other forms of tobacco would require this kind of a stamp. That's a good way to raise money as well.
This wasn't a postal stamp, it was like affixed to the box?
It would be affixed to the box, so that you would, wrapped in plastic or whatever, then you pop it open, you have to break the stamp.
But the post office managed that?
The post office would provide these stamps to the company manufacturing them. That the companies would be required to pay the post office, and that it was illegal to sell playing cards without that. It would be illegal to sell whiskey unless it had that, that none of you probably drink whiskey, so whatever, you just, or wine or beer or other kinds of things as well. This next one. Well, they taxed everything else, even potatoes. Why not intangibles? What do you think this would be used for?
Raising money.
Raising money. Let's say I lived in Hobart, Indiana, and I was mad at the government over something that either they were not doing or should be doing in Hobart, Indiana. Then I could come to the state capitol, which we see there in Indianapolis, and I would file a protest. Now, the beauty of the intangible taxes then is that you not only get rid of the people who are complaining and lining, but then you make money on it as well. So this is called a protest tax. So you go in, complain to the clerk, whatever, lots of problems, I want to file a protest, they would say, fine, you have to affix this $1 intangible tax then to your letter of protest. $1 was a lot in 1941 then too. So, I'm not that, I'm mad, but I'm not really that mad. This is a real early, 1871, of a documentary tax, U.S. Internal Revenue, so that would be used for a tax payment. These became really big in the Civil War. Some of the federal budgets in the 1840s were like $100 million, 20% of the fine that Goldman Sachs was required to pay. $100 million, that was the whole federal budget. So 1860, Lincoln comes in, we have the Civil War, immediate need for raising funds. So the federal government then came up with the idea of collecting taxes then by affixing stamps to checks, to wills, to letters of protest. Anything you did that was formal would have to have this stamp affixed to it as well. They really raised a lot of money with this as well. Next one. Almost through. We've got to kind of go through these as well. 3/4 cent for potatoes. Here's the story. This is 1935, the Depression. There was a Potato Act which punished growers who exceeded their allotment by growing more potatoes. They were too good, and so they would be punished, and they would make payment this way. Well, that lasted less than a year, and people said, this is stupid to punish potato farmers for being good farmers, so the potato tax was repealed. But this is one, again, kind of a symbolic moment here as well. Now these we call Cinderellas. Cinderella was the last one who was invited to the ball. And so in the stamp catalogs, they were the last one invited to the ball. They were the last ones included in there. And so we have 1938, another protective woman with her child lighting a candle of hope. What would this be used for to raise money? Does anybody recognize the?
Recognize what?
Tuberculosis and TB. And so you would buy these, it's a donation, you'd still have those today, and then you would affix it to the back of your stamp. Well, every once in a while people tried to use them as regular postage stamps, and sometimes they got through, which is kind of neat as well. This is a really early 1908 use of the Red Cross Cinderella stamp as well. The next one. I like the old language that was used, like the word crippled, which becomes now kind of offensive to people, but not at that particular time. So we see, I'm not really sure what they were raising money for. Yeah, I'm sorry, because you can see her raising that. And so the dream, she'll be jumping rope again if you support the charity. Powerful stuff. Okay, the next one. I have no idea. That's who I bought it. It's fine. It's Elizabeth Kenny. Does anybody know?
She was fighting polio.
She was fighting polio. Thank you. It looks like it because she's in a. Is that like a crib or? I don't know. That she's appealing. Elizabeth Kenny Foundation as well. Postage rates are going up. You remember this one?
What?
1978. These are called non-denominated stamps, and they were peel and stick as opposed to lick and stick then. And so as the post office was raising rates so quickly, before they could get another stamp made up, then they would require that these non-denominated stamps be affixed with the regular postage to go along with this. I like the stylized eagle, with the kind of modern view as well. But Things get confusing. How much do you think you have to put on your letter with this little message? This US stamp, along with 25 cents of additional US postage, is equivalent to the F. Huh?
What's the F stamp?
The F stamp rate. Well, that was the problem. Nobody really knew what it was. This is 1991. The 25-cent stamp was going up to 29 cents as well. So this would be a 4-cent surcharge. So the F stamp was worth 25 cents. But nobody knew that. And they'd get mad at the post office. Are you screwing around with my mind again? I don't know what this means, you know. So it gets really confusing. There's lots of different problems with these, I think, as well. Okay, these are the nonprofits. Let me know if I'm going over too long or whatever. With the these are pre-sorted, so you could save a lot of money for the large bundles and things you bring to the post office, especially if you were nonprofit. Okay, next one. Classic Woody. Pre-sorted to save time and save some money on this as well. Other special usages. Let's go to the
Can
next.
I just
Yeah.
say something?
Yeah.
Charles had a car just like that.
Did you really?
Yes, we did.
What year was it?
1947 Plymouth station wagon.
With the wood panel side.
Do you still have it?
We paid a whopping $125 for it.
Oh my goodness. Unbelievable.
Probably you would for it now.
I wish I had it. I wish I had it.
These were very special, and in 1885, you would put on the regular first class stamp, and then you would affix this stamp for 10 cents, and it would secure immediate delivery at any post office to cancel. This would be delivery within minutes. So if someone in your family passed away, you had to get the word out really quickly. They would find the fastest boy in town, and he would be a runner. And they would say, come over here, special delivery. And he would run it across town, presumably give him a little tip, and it would go that way. I've read accounts where men would propose marriage by special delivery. I think that's kind of chicken.
We happen to have a postal worker here tonight.
Oh, thank
You
you.
may want to add something. Do you still have this service?
No, we don't have that service anymore.
No worries.
Long
Well,
gone.
yeah. What does this have to do with Elvis Presley? I won't sing it. Return to sender, return to sender. Send it back to her, special D. Elvis sings as well. So, you know, it shows up all over the place. Then we begin to look at high technology. Yeah.
The special deliveries moved up the bicycle.
Yeah, we moved from the running boy down to young kid on bicycle, and later on we move up to a motorcycle and a truck. So you can follow the whole sequence for special delivery. Okay, certified. This is a kind of an old one. It's first class, no indemnity, no proof of mailing. It would be added to protect this. So sometimes you needed to get a return receipt required, you know, in the post office, registered and certified. People would want to know the difference, I imagine. It's confusing, you know, at least to me. Anyway, so this, I like the smiling mailman, you know, it's just, tell your grandkid about this someday when there were people, men, carry bags of paper around. What? They didn't do that. They put the papers in those little boxes.
We once had 2 deliveries a day.
You had 2 deliveries a day, and maybe, you know, a Saturday delivery too, maybe. I don't know. I don't want to make you feel bad, so we'll move on. So they really had like declining revenue. This is the first place.
Is it true on that special delivery stamp? I heard that years ago the housewife could make her grocery order out in the morning and have a special delivery to the post or to grocery store and they would deliver the groceries for supper.
That would be how speedy they could be. Yeah,
They
would
did
be
that, is
within
that right?
minutes. I don't know about that, it makes sense. Yeah, I believe it. Next one, this is actually a Skymaster 1946, and the variations, you have to have a real sharp eye with this, are around the wingtip. It looks a little screwed up when you look at where the engines are placed, so the artists are messing around with that, saying that's not right. So some of them have a rounded wingtip, some of them have a flat wingtip. So it's these little differences that kind of make all the difference in the world. Okay, next. UPU, Universal Postal Union, 1874 it was first used. So a number of countries got together and they said enough is enough. We're going to have a unified postal union that will provide standard postage really for all of these different countries as well. Okay, next.
Well, how long did that last?
We still have that, so that you could send a letter to England, you could send a letter to Russia, you can send any of our partners in the UPU partner with us, and I think they get together occasionally to study the rates. That in Japan they will deliver my letter, with the United States postage. I don't need a Japanese stamp. They'll do it with, and conversely, the other way around, which really simplifies things. And then you have standard rates that would be a part of this as well. Lindbergh, airmail stamp from, he was really a hero, I think, of course, with this as well. Airmail stamp, 10 cents from 1927, featuring the spirit of St. Louis. Everybody knows that one. Okay, next one. Some of the planes carrying mail crashed into the Rocky Mountains, especially if they were flying at night. There's no way to really, no landmarks that you could see. So in 1928, a beacon, a radio beacon, was provided to guide these pilots over the Rocky Mountains. So this is a beacon version of this stamp as well. Next, land grant colleges, Michigan State, Pennsylvania State, this as well. Next one.
The first
What did Amelia Earhart do?
She died.
She got halfway around the world before she died, yeah.
She did die, I think she died, but they never found her body.
That's true, we don't know.
I never found her airplane either.
Is she still alive? I don't think so. She'll be like 150 or whatever. She was the first woman to fly across the Atlantic, I believe. And I think there's a movie out, isn't there?
Last year, I think.
What's it called? I don't know.
It's one of her new.
I just put them in.
It's called Amelia?
I don't know, I said maybe.
Amelia Earhart. Next slide. Balloon mail was used. These balloons, of course, were really helpful in the Civil War. The South didn't have them, the federal government did. Behind the friendly lines, you wouldn't want to go flying over the Confederate lines with your balloon unless you were out of mind. And so for reconnaissance purposes, they could send those up, get a clear view of the battlefield, go back down, telegraph it back to Abraham Lincoln in Washington. They laid out a war plan. The South had nothing like that technology, no telegraphs, no balloons. Part of the reason that the United States won. Pretty low rate with 7 cents. The Zeppelin stamps, very valuable. They were used for a short time for mail carried on the Zeppelin. What caused the demise of the Zeppelin stamp?
Fire.
Yeah.
From the,
It burned it up.
what was that? Oh, the horror of it, the Hindenburg. So that explosion, then they thought, well, maybe this isn't such a good idea to carry mail as well. This is 1998. Finally, our country gets used to the idea of using what's called semi-postals. So the semi-postals, this was a 33 and then 34. The donation would go to the, have a good night, Charlie.
Thank you.
Thank you, it was nice meeting you.
The vote for dollars is over with.
I'm sorry?
Bowling for dollars is over with. That's when Charlie goes to bed.
Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, next one. Another semi-postal first class. This was 37 cents as well. Now we'll look at a few more Cinderellas. We're almost at the end of the program. And Smokey the Bear. So these were public service announcements that would be, that's not a postage stamp, it would be put on the flap to show that you support Smokey. So it's very much like advertising, you know, building a symbol. I love this stamp, but just, I have no idea what it means. And advertises San Bernardino, California, that from February 20th to 28th of 1917, they're going to have the 7th annual Orange Show. I bought this, I figured there can't be too many of those around, but I like the depiction of the woman. She looks kind of exotic, a little risque almost, with her oranges. What an enormous orange, as big as coconut, you know, that she's got there as well, and her little party hat. But I've got to have this.
That logo was always on the crate of oranges.
Oh, was
You
it?
buy a crate of oranges, it was on the side of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So that became
Same
kind of
thing.
the logo for the company.
Yep.
Okay, next one. Must be the end. This is a Cinderella advertising the Century of Progress in Chicago. It always reminds me of the Wizard of Oz and the Emerald City. When I look at it, this is modern. Is this Art Deco?
Yeah.
Would you think it looks like an Art Deco feel to you? And then look at the typography, City of Big Shoulders, say it writes later on. But, you know, you can communicate a lot about your values along with this as well. I love this series too. This is the National Parks series. Quote, the best idea America ever had with the national park. So they go all the way through. 10 cents, beautiful series, really affordable. And this is El Capitan in the Yosemite version as well. Next one. 1969, Neil Armstrong, Edwin Aldrin, and Colonel Michael Collins. The moon landing, again, look at how long ago that was as well. I have a book of famous eulogies, and this is listed as the most famous eulogy never given. So they, speechwriters had written a eulogy, given it to Richard Nixon, saying, just in case, that he pulled that out of the hat and be able to read this too. It's a beautiful piece of writing, you know, that be ready for anything as well. And the last one, of course, you can recognize this as well. This is a little bit like the Iwo Jima thing that was staged. I believe this is a mast of a sailboat that was used for the photograph. Originally, this was what the firefighters tried to do, was to raise an American flag. Photographer said, hey, well, let's do it right, and they were able to pose this. So it's a kind of an Iwo Jima sort of a thing. And this is a semi-postal stamp used to raise money for the victims of 9/11. Really, really good kinds of messages there as well. So just in conclusion, how we value each other, I think is seen in our stamps. George Washington Carver, Malcolm X on stamps, Hispanics, Asian Americans, people of color, depicting of women on stamps. So a lot of the barriers fall, and as they fall, then we see various people then who are honored by these stamps as well. If you're interested in selling stamps, which many of you may be interested in that, I have a Scott's album in the back if you want to use that to look up values. The Scott's values are usually 10% of the buy price. It's kind of like jewelry where there's, you know, a big markup. So if you bought it retail, you know, that would be the Scott's price. Dealers try to buy it at about 10% and then maybe sell it at 50%, you know, unless it's really a special stamp. And also selling stamps on eBay is a really effective way to do it. Look at your stamps carefully. If there's any small flaws, like a perforation or a gum skip on the back, this is going to really reduce the value. Perfect centering is so important with this as well. Don't store your stamps in the basement or in the attic or anywhere like that, then room temperature, whatever. And don't try to pull them out of the album. If you want to get the stamps out of the album, you can sew the album. Just throw the whole album in water and then get the stamps as they come. So sometimes, it's easy to sort of pull a stamp apart, trying to get it out of the albums as well. What can I tell you? I'll be happy to talk to anybody, back in the room if you do have things you want me to look at. Other than that, I think this is our legacy as Americans. We look at what stamps provide, and I hope hope today I showed you a little bit of a mirror, maybe, of what stamps are. So, thank you for coming.
We have refreshments as usual right over here. Hang around, talk to people, talk to Mike. You want to add anything to all this?
No, he did a wonderful job.
Okay.
Very nice.
He really did.
Thank you.
Did a very nice job.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, thanks. Get some water, and again, I'll be over there if you feel like to talk.
How are you, darling?
I just kind of, I don't think bales are worth
That could be a lot.
Pretty much set until about 1925.
Usually these things